Take a quick second and really think about the cash sitting in your wallet right now, or maybe the numbers on your banking app. When you get right down to it, it's literally just paper, bits of metal, or pixels on a screen. None of it has any actual, intrinsic use value. You can't eat it, you can't build a house with it, it's definitely not going to keep you warm at night. And yet, we trade the vast majority of our waking hours just to get our hands on it. Our entire society completely organizes itself around it. So it really begs the question, why on earth does a simple piece of printed paper have value?
Well, welcome to this explainer. I am super excited you're joining me today because we're going to deconstruct something that we all use every single day, but honestly, very few of us actually understand. We are going to demystify money. We'll look at the fundamental rules that govern it, trace its genuinely fascinating evolution over time, and uncover the pretty counterintuitive reality of how modern money actually comes into existence.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First up, what actually is money? Then, from shells to paper. Next, the fiat money revolution, followed by how money is created. And finally, we'll wrap up with the dark side of money.
Section 1. What actually is money? Let's define its core functions and properties.
Okay, so to really grasp what money is, we first have to understand why humanity even bothered to invent it in the first place. Historically, a lot of non-monetary societies ran on gift economies or debt. But when they did try to barter, especially with strangers, they ran into this massive, glaring inefficiency. Think about it. If you make shoes and you desperately want some bread, you have to find a baker who happens to want your exact size of shoes at that exact same moment. Economists call this the coincidence of wants, and man is it inefficient. Money is basically humanity's ultimate economic life hack. It completely frees you up. You can just sell your shoes for money and then use that money to buy bread from a baker whenever you feel like it.
For any object to actually be considered money, it has to fulfill three textbook functions. First, it's got to be a medium of exchange, meaning it intermediates trades and completely bypasses that annoying coincidence of wants problem we just talked about. Second, it has to be a unit of account. That's basically a standard measurement of value, so we can actually set prices and negotiate with each other. And third, it needs to be a store of value, which means you can save it, store it away, and retrieve it later while it maintains its purchasing power. Now, way back in 1875, the economist William Stanley Jevons threw in a fourth function, a standard of deferred payment. But honestly, most modern economists just bundle that right into these big three.
The crucial thing here is that to pull off those three functions, the physical object itself needs some very specific traits. It must be fungible, meaning every single unit is perfectly interchangeable. A dollar is a dollar. It has to be durable enough to survive being passed around. It needs to be divisible into smaller chunks so you can actually make exact change, and portable so you can carry it in your pocket. It absolutely must be acceptable, like society has to agree to take it. And finally, it has to be scarce. If there's an infinite supply, it totally loses its value.
Section 2. From shells to paper. The evolution of monetary technology.
So, to better serve all those properties we just listed, human societies have been constantly inventing new technologies. We've literally used everything from cowrie shells to barley as money. But let's look at this timeline. Around 600 BC, the Lydians introduced stamped electrum coins, bringing a much-needed standardized weight of precious metal to the trading table. Fast forward to the 11th century, and the Song dynasty in China invents paper money. Why? To save merchants from lugging around thousands of super heavy copper coins. Europe was kind of late to the party, with Stockholm's Banco issuing paper notes in 1661. Then we hit a massive leap in 1971, which we are definitely going to dig into in a second, when the US suspends the dollar's convertibility to gold. And then, in 2008, the tech evolves again when Bitcoin introduces this wild concept of a decentralized, borderless digital currency that doesn't need a trusted third party at all.
Just pause for a second and think about how mind-blowing this evolution was for the people actually living through it. When Marco Polo traveled to the Yuan dynasty, he was completely stunned by the concept of paper money. He was so shocked that he literally titled a chapter of his book, How the Great Khan Causeth the Bark of Trees Made into Something Like Paper to Pass for Money All Over His Country. To medieval Europeans who were totally reliant on heavy chunks of gold and silver, the whole idea that a government could just print on a piece of paper and demand it be treated as actual wealth, well, to them, it was pure magic.
Section 3. The fiat money revolution. Leaving the gold standard behind.
That magic Marco Polo witnessed? Yeah, it eventually took over the entire world, leading us straight into a modern paradigm shift. See, for centuries, we used commodity money or representative money.
That basically meant your money had intrinsic value, like an actual gold coin, or it was a paper receipt you could reliably take to a bank and swap for a fixed amount of physical gold or silver. But today, almost all contemporary money systems run on fiat money. Fiat money has zero intrinsic value. It is completely unbacked by any physical commodity whatsoever. It has value simply because a government declares it to be legal tender, by decree or fiat, and, well, because you have to use it to pay your taxes.
And the exact moment the world truly crossed this point of no return, that was 1971. After World War II, most countries tied their currencies directly to the US dollar, and the US dollar was tied to gold. It was a whole system. But in 1971, the US government officially suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold. That single move depegged the entire global monetary system. Today, there isn't a single country anywhere on Earth that operates on an enforceable gold or silver standard.
Section 4. How money is created. The counterintuitive truth about the money supply.
So now that we know our money isn't backed by gold anymore, it brings up a really massive question. Where does it actually come from? What I'm about to tell you is arguably one of the most counterintuitive truths in modern economics. In our current system, money's created in two very distinct ways. Step 1, central banks, like the Federal Reserve, mint physical coins and print banknotes. We call this base money. But here's step 2. Commercial banks issue loans to clients. And step 3, that debt is simply recorded as a deposit in the borrower's account. This is the big secret, guys. Contrary to popular belief, banks do not just sit there acting as middlemen, lending out the deposits that savers give them. No, when a bank issues a loan, they literally create brand new electronic broad money into existence, out of thin air, right there on their ledgers.
To keep all this straight, try thinking of money in two buckets. You've got your base money, known as M0. That's created by the central bank, your physical coins and bills. Then you have your broad money, designated as M1 or M2, which is created by commercial banks. These are your checking accounts and savings accounts. The wild part is that the vast majority of the money supply in developed countries isn't physical cash printed by the government. It's commercial bank money. It's non-physical. It lives entirely in the digital account ledgers of financial institutions, generated every day through fractional reserve banking.
Section 5. The dark side of money. What happens when the system breaks or is abused?
Because money is fundamentally just a system of trust and social agreement, you really have to wonder, what happens when bad actors exploit it or central authorities totally mismanage it? Well, the system is vulnerable. First, obviously, there's counterfeiting. This is almost as old as money itself. Archaeologists have even found counterfeit Lydian coins. During World War II, the Nazis famously forged British pounds and US dollars to destabilize economies, and today we're still fighting off incredibly high-quality forgeries known as superdollars. Then you have money laundering, where criminals take the proceeds of crime and transform them into ostensibly legitimate assets to hide where they came from, but the system can also fail from the very top down. If central banks drastically mismanage the money supply, you get hyperinflation. The currency rapidly loses its purchasing power, which can lead to a total monetary collapse and forces society right back to a barter economy. On the flip side, back in the days of the gold standard, if gold mining couldn't keep pace with economic growth, you'd get deflation, dropping prices, which severely stifles economic activity. And all of this brings us to a super fascinating psychological quirk about how we actually interact with money, summed up perfectly by Gresham's law: bad money drives out good. Think about it. If a community has two forms of money circulating, let's say one coin made of pure, solid silver, and another coin that's legally worth the exact same amount but is made of cheap copper, people are going to hold on to the pure silver coin. They hoard the good money and they immediately spend the bad money. So over time, only the less desirable currency actually circulates in the daily economy.
We've been on quite a journey today. From cowrie shells and barley to heavy metal coins to Marco Polo marveling at paper tree bark, all the way to the unbacked, digitally created fiat debt that literally fuels our modern lives. By the 2000s, most money existed solely as digital entries in banking databases, which perfectly set the stage for decentralized networks like Bitcoin to emerge. All of this leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to end on. If money is really just a verifiable record that society accepts, and our lives are moving more and more into the completely digital realm, what is the money of the future actually going to look like? Will it be controlled by central banks, private corporations, or totally decentralized protocols? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helped demystify those numbers sitting in your bank account.